You won't believe what happened when the HOA president showed up at my lake cabin, demanding I let her guests inside. I had no idea who she was at first, but her attitude immediately gave it away. She was entitled, condescending, and assumed I would just bend over backward for her. The nerve of some people. It all started when she called me out of nowhere, asking if I could unlock my cabin for a group of her friends who were visiting the area. She said they needed a place to hang out, and I should be more considerate. But here's the kicker. I don't know these people, and frankly, I wasn't about to just hand over the keys. When I refused, that's when things got heated. She freaked out, telling me I was being unreasonable and acting like I didn't have any responsibility to the community. But wait, it gets even crazier. As she continued to press me, I started to realize just how far some people will go to get what they want. It didn't take long before I was caught in a standoff that I wasn't prepared for. What happened next? You'll have to stick around to see how it all went down. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. So, let me give you some context. I've lived in this quiet lake community for a few years now, and honestly, I've always kept to myself. I've seen the HOA president around. Her name is Janet, but we've never really interacted. Most of the neighbors keep their distance, and I'm happy that way. I enjoy my peace and quiet at the cabin, away from all the drama. But that day, when she called, something about her tone rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't just a casual request. It felt like she was demanding something, as if I didn't have a choice in the matter. She kept talking about how I had a duty to be more accommodating to the people in the neighborhood. She went on about how the lake community needed to come together and support each other. It all sounded good in theory, but the more she spoke, the more it felt like I was just a piece in her little game. I told her no, but she didn't take that well. She started pushing harder, saying I was being selfish and unneighborly, which was laughable because I've been nothing but respectful to everyone. The audacity. It was clear she didn't think I had the right to say no. But the real kicker was when she threatened to report me to the HOA board. When Janet threatened to report me to the HOA board, I knew she wasn't playing around. The HOA here has a reputation for being strict. Everyone follows the rules, or they risk facing consequences. I didn't want to get tangled up in their mess, but I wasn't about to back down either. She was pushing my buttons, and I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but I could feel the tension building. She hung up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. A few hours later, I got a knock on the door. It was one of the neighbors, a guy named Dave, who'd lived in the community for years. I didn't know him well, but we'd exchanged pleasantries a few times. He didn't even have to say much before I realized why he was there. "Janet asked me to check on you," he said, his voice low. "She's worried you might be making things difficult for everyone." I raised an eyebrow. Why would she send Dave, of all people? It felt like a setup. I politely told him I was fine and that I had no intention of letting anyone into my cabin, but I could tell by his eyes that something was off. He wasn't entirely on my side in this situation, even if he was pretending to be. It was like there was some unspoken pressure from Janet that had everyone in the neighborhood on edge. The whole thing was getting messier by the minute. I couldn't figure out if Janet genuinely thought I was causing trouble or if this was some sort of power play. Either way, the pressure kept mounting. As the evening wore on, I began to wonder just how far she was willing to take this. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and tense exchanges. Janet didn't stop. Every time I thought she'd backed off, she'd show up again, each time more forceful than the last. I'd get a call from a neighbor, a passive-aggressive message, or even a visit from someone else in the community, all with the same underlying message. I needed to cooperate for the greater good. It was becoming impossible to ignore the pressure she was putting on me, and I could feel myself starting to crack. But then something happened that made it all feel real. One evening, just as I was winding down, I noticed a car parked near my cabin, one I didn't recognize. I stepped outside to take a look, and there she was, Janet, standing by the cabin's front door, talking to a group of people I'd never seen before. She wasn't just asking anymore. She was taking matters into her own hands. The strangers were there, waiting for my approval to go inside, and Janet didn't even seem to care that I was watching. My heart dropped into my stomach. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. She had gone behind my back and brought these people here, hoping I'd just cave. It was like she'd decided that she had the right to make decisions for me, for the entire community. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't about the cabin. It was about power. I stepped outside, my fists clenched, ready to confront her once and for all. But as I walked toward them, Janet's smug smile made my blood run cold. She wasn't worried, she was confident. I could feel the tension in the air, thick with the anticipation of what was about to happen. Everything was building up to this moment, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face what would come next. As I walked toward them, ready to confront Janet, something unexpected happened. Just before I could reach her, a second car pulled up, and this time, it wasn't another neighbor or friend of hers. It was a sheriff's deputy. I froze. My heart skipped a beat as the deputy stepped out, looking directly at me. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone professional but firm. Janet immediately jumped in, her voice smooth as she started explaining the situation, painting me as the unreasonable one. She claimed I was blocking access to a shared space that was essential for community activities. It felt like a nightmare. She had brought in law enforcement to back her up. My stomach twisted. I never thought it would come to this. The deputy looked at me for a moment, his eyes scanning me as though trying to figure out what was going on. "Ma'am," he said to me, "we've received complaints about your refusal to let people use the cabin for community purposes. There are some real concerns about your actions." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about me and Janet anymore. Somehow, she'd managed to turn the whole neighborhood against me. Now, it seemed like I was the one under investigation. I tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing. Janet stood there, smug as ever, waiting for me to cave. But as the deputy began asking questions, I realized there was something much deeper happening. Was this really just about my cabin, or was there something bigger at play? Was Janet using the HOA to settle some kind of personal vendetta? The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. The deputy's presence only added more weight to the tension hanging in the air. Janet stood there, calmly explaining how she was just trying to maintain order in the community. But I wasn't having it anymore. I wasn't going to let her spin this narrative, especially not with the law backing her up. I had to take control of the situation before it spiraled further. I took a deep breath and finally spoke up. "Look, Janet," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this isn't about community or helping anyone out. This is about you trying to push me around, and I won't stand for it." I turned to the deputy. "I've been nothing but respectful, and now I'm being forced to defend my own property from someone who thinks they can control everything. This cabin isn't part of any community agreement. There's no rule that says I have to open my door to anyone I don't want to." For a moment, there was silence. The deputy seemed to think about what I said. Janet opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, the deputy raised a hand, signaling her to stop. "Ma'am, I've looked into this," he said, addressing Janet. "You don't have the authority to make demands like that. If the property owner doesn't want to share their space, that's their choice." I couldn't believe it. After all the pressure, the threats, and the mind games, the deputy was siding with me. Janet's face twisted in disbelief, her smug smile slipping away. But just as I thought the situation was finally turning in my favor, another surprise hit. From the corner of my eye, I noticed someone else approaching. Dave, the neighbor who had come to check on me earlier. He was walking toward us with a stack of papers in hand. He handed them to the deputy and said, "I think you'll want to see this." The deputy took the papers and flipped through them. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the pages. "These are HOA records," he said, looking at Janet. "And they're not looking good. You've been using your position to push personal agendas. There are several complaints here about you pressuring homeowners. Looks like someone's been overstepping their bounds." Janet's face drained of color. Her perfect little plan was unraveling before her eyes. The deputy looked at her, then back at me. I'm afraid this is more than just a neighborhood dispute. We'll be looking into this further. Janet's calm composure shattered. This isn't over, she hissed, before turning and walking away, her shoulders stiff with anger. As I stood there, still in shock over what had just happened, I realized something even more unsettling.